Kampetu Washte, good day in Lakota. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sarah Eaglehart. Welcome to We Vote, We Rise, honoring Native women on the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote. I'm Sarah Eaglehart. I'm Ogallala Lakota, co-founder and CEO of Return to the Heart Foundation. Return to the Heart Foundation empowers visionary Indigenous women-led initiatives to achieve narrative change strategies from within social movements. We are one of the organizing groups that came together to start Sisters Rising, a new collaboration to share the story of how Native women inspired the movement to gain the right to vote and unite women from across the U.S. to register and turn out the vote this election in historic numbers. I will be co-hosting today with my friend and dear sister, Monica Ramirez, founder and president of Justice for Migrant Women and co-organizer of Sisters Rising. Monica and I first connected and formed a friendship around the shared struggles of Native women and those who came to the United States as migrant workers from Central and South America, many with an Indigenous ancestry. Our organizations are working together to uplift the voices of some of the most marginalized in our society. It is critical as we commemorate this 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote that we listen to these voices as we register and turn out women voters in historic numbers, especially those in communities of color. Hi, Monica.
These past years, our sisters have been rising up together. We've broken records in the streets and in elections and in sports. We've shared our Me Too stories, and we've told the patriarchy that time's up. For too long, our society has pitted women against each other in the same competitive paradigm that has been harming our communities and devastating our Mother Earth. The time has come for us to come together as sisters, to support each other, to lift up each other's good work, and to return to our hearts. I'm excited to join all of you today. We've heard from many of our sisters throughout the movement about how 100 years ago was only the beginning of the right to vote. At first, this right was only available to mainly white women. Efforts to suppress or outright deny women of color the right to vote did not legally end until the Voting Rights Act in 1965. And as we all know, voter suppression is still an issue for women of color today. In order to change this and to finally achieve a democracy where each woman is afforded the right to vote in this country, we're going to have to work together and rise up. That's why we started Sisters Rising. Throughout the program, you will see a text code to get involved with Sisters Rising. You'll be able to register to vote and register your family and friends. You can do it right now too. Text RISE, R-I-S-E, to 788683. That's right, text 788683 with the words RISE.
Thanks, Monica. Let's get started with a song written by Teresa Bearfox honoring our water from our Mohawk sisters from the Akwesasne Women Singers, followed by a video explaining the role that Native American women from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy had in inspiring and influencing the women's right to vote. Welcome Betty Lyons from the Onondaga Nation and Executive Director from the American Indian Law Alliance, and Dr. Sally Roche Wagner, author and advocate, and founder and director of the Matilda Jocelyn Gage Center.
Haudenosaunee is a confederacy of 6 nations. Our confederacy was formed over 1,000 years ago on the shores of Onondaga Lake, bringing first original 5 warring nations together. The Mohawks, the Oneidas, the Onondagas, the Cayugas, and then the Senecas. And then the Tuscaroras didn't join us later until 1713. And we were given this great message of peace, for unity, friendship, and using the good mind. The Haudenosaunee are also known as the Iroquois, which is a pejorative term which means black snakes. That was given to us by the French. And we're also known as 6 nations, which the English referred to us as, but we call ourselves Haudenosaunee, people of the Longhouse. There's something that most people don't understand or know about us, is that the United States system of government is patterned after our government with the 3 branches of government. They patterned that style of government, asking us to bring 2 representatives to Philadelphia at the time to help them to try to bring forth the same system of government for themselves. So when our men arrived, the first thing that they noticed was that there was no women. So the first thing that they asked them was, "Where's your women?" I mean, because it was so unusual for women to not be part of our government. And when they were told that they weren't going to be allowed to be a part of it, I think that they were really shocked. So they patterned their system of government after ours, but they left out the women. They left out 2 very important things, the women and the voice of Mother Earth. And so we always say that the United States hasn't become a full democracy until 1920, but in my mind, it hasn't become a full democracy yet because we still aren't including the voice of Mother Earth.
The women who became suffragists had close connections with the Haudenosaunee. They all had one-on-one contact with Haudenosaunee. And what they saw was a world that was the mirror opposite of their own. For a non-Native woman to have any sense of her own identity, she had to go against both religion and cultural beliefs. Women were dead in the law. They had no legal existence once they married. It was also believed that women were biologically inferior to men. Women had no control of their own bodies. Husbands could beat their wives as long as they did not inflict permanent damage. Husbands had the legal right to rape their wives. Women had no right to their children. So when women began to think about, could our lives be different, they had to have seen something that gave them that idea. And what they saw were their nearby neighbors, the Haudenosaunee. What they saw was a world that gave them the opposite of what their lives were. This was a world in which women had control of their own bodies. It was a world in which women had political voice equal with that of man. And seeing that made them know that it was possible.
Our Haudenosaunee women are matrilineal. We're not a matriarch, which is very different. It's not about power and control. It's about balance. Everything follows the women's line. Your children, your clan family, your land. Even our leaders are picked by our clan mothers, our women. And so we watch young men as they grow and see what kind of character that they have. It's always based on the principles of good character. They choose that leader for that family, and then if they were to get off the path or not maybe take up their duties and responsibilities as they're supposed to, they are reprimanded and kind of pushed back on the path. If they continue to keep falling off the path, then they have the right of removal, which is very different from, the U.S. system. I don't think that the U.S. system of government would be the same today if it was first they were picked on principles of good character, and secondly had the right of removal. I think we would see something very different.
Matilda Jocelyn Gage, who was one of the major leaders of the women's rights movement, the National Women's Suffrage Association, along with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, she described the Haudenosaunee in this way: never was justice more perfect, never was civilization higher. And she's describing not a reversal of patriarchy. It's actually one in which it's egalitarian, it's balanced, And it is women having a special spiritual importance because of their creation of life along with Mother Earth.
We're still here, thriving and surviving, and that we're still practicing our ancient practices that we have for thousands of years, not only just in our council meetings, but in our communities as well, and inside of our families. And it's important for people to understand that we haven't gone anywhere, and we're not going to go anywhere. You know, if we can impart anything, hopefully it is that interconnectedness to all other things, because we see the earth as our mother. And so her being a female entity, that relationship is so important. So I always ask people, well, how do you treat your own mother? How would you treat Mother Earth? How do you treat your own mother? Everything on earth is connected. You know, we all have different responsibilities. We're not above one another, we're equal.
Next, it is my deep pleasure to introduce Return to the Heart Society Fellow and woman warrior Lila June Johnson with her song, All Nations Rise. Lila June is an Indigenous musician, scholar, and community organizer of Dene Cheyenne and her European lineages. Her activism, her words, and her music inspires us as we rise up in this critical time in her story.
Indigenous people, shine your light, we are equal. I remember the days when our prayers were illegal. I remember the days when being Indian was lethal. Yeah, we had a rough past, but get ready for the sequel. Get ready for the glorious comeback of our people. Oh, yeah. Rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I can feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I can hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up, wake up. All nations rise. Rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's the time. All nations rise, rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's the time. With forgiveness as my bow and my prayers as my arrows, pull them back and let go. I watch them fly like sparrows. Have hope. Yeah, have hope. With compassion as my shield and faith down to my marrow, I will walk the pollen path even when it gets narrow. Yeah, yeah, I resurrect. Yes, you can bet that we seen the single mama raising children on the res. We seen domestic violence tear apart what we have left. We seen the alcohol take it all and leave us dead. We seen the children take their lives when they can't take the dread anymore. It's a war. Can't take the dread anymore. It's a war. No, we can't take the dread anymore. It's a war. No, we can't take the dread anymore. It's a war. Yeah. It's a war, but we've seen it all before. And now we know we can change it, 'cause that's why we were born. We know we are the ones that we have been waiting for. We are the ones Grandma has been praying for. So rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I can feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I can hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up, wake up. Pueblo hermoso, levántense, es nuestro tiempo. No tienes que esconderte más. Ahora es nuestro tiempo. Mujer indígena, tú eres tan sagrada. Traigas medicina de tu suelo todavía. A pesar del abuso de tu cuerpo y tu tierra, respetamos tus ancestros y la suya cultura. Hombre indígena, tú eres honorable y yo veo la fuerza que todavía sobrevive a pesar del abuso de tu raza venerable. Yo respeto tus ritos, tus danzas, tus padres. Somos guerreros del amor y guerreros de la paz y no vamos a escondernos más. Somos guerreros del amor y guerreros de la paz y no vamos a escondernos más.
They say that history is written by the victors. But how can there be a victor when the war isn't over? The battle has only just begun, and Creator is sending his very best warriors. And this time, it isn't Indians versus cowboys. No, this time, it is all the beautiful races of humanity together on the same side, and we are fighting to replace our fear with love. And this time, bullets, arrows, and cannonballs won't save us. The only weapons that are useful in this battle are the weapons of truth, faith, and compassion.
And now I'm honored to introduce a reading of the poem Remember by Joy Harjo, the current Poet Laureate of the United States. She is the first Native American to be honored in its 33-year history. She is a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation and acclaimed musician, playwright, and author of Crazy Brave, a memoir.
Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time.
Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers.
Remember your father. He is your life. Also, remember the earth whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth.
Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive poems.
Remember the wind, remember her voice, remember the origins of the universe. Remember you are the people, and the people are you. Remember the universe, and the universe is you.
Remember, all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember, language comes from this. Remember the dance, language is, that life is. Remember.
We are excited to be joined now by Congresswoman Deb Haaland and advocate Holly T. Bird. Representative Haaland is from the Laguna Pueblo Nation and represents New Mexico's 1st Congressional District. She is one of the first 2 Native women to be elected in 2018, along with Sharice Davids, who will also be in our program a little later. Representative Haaland has been a lifelong advocate for Native American rights, social and environmental justice. Holly Bird will be interviewing Rep. Haaland. Holly is from the San Felipe Pueblo, Prepacha, and Yaqui people. Holly is a lawyer, judge, and advocate for Native people. Currently, she serves as the Associate Supreme Court Judge for the Nada-Wasepi Huron Band of Potawatomi Indians. She is also co-executive director for the Water Protectors Legal Collective and Michigan Water Protectors Legal Task Force.
Thank you, Ani Miigwech, for being here. Representative Haaland, I've been following your career for a while now, and I've been very excited about the developments you've made as one of our relatives. I'm San Felipe myself, although I was raised here in Michigan. And so for me to see, a relative do what you're doing is really makes my heart really proud, and I'm so thankful.
Thank you.
But I do have some questions. So I want to start off with some of our more contemporary issues and some of the hot topics that we have right now. One is, how big of a crisis is the United States Postal Service being defunded, and what does that mean to Indian country?
Well, first off, I mean, I have to think about the fact that a lot of Native communities are rural communities. There are, folks who live off, they're not all on the beaten path. I mean, New Mexico, in and of itself, we have 23 Indian tribes in New Mexico. You have to plan to go to any one of our Native American communities because they are essentially rural. If and I have to believe that the first cuts they'll make, if that's the case, are to these rural post office. And you compound that with the lack of broadband internet service, and you have just cut off communities across the country from communicating with the outside world, essentially. People like my mom, who worked for the federal government for 25 years, she doesn't use a computer for anything. She gets her check in the mail every month. And so she relies on the post office to make sure that she is taking care of the business she needs to take care of. My mom, she still writes checks and mails them for her bills with a stamp on the envelope. And she's just, somebody who is not, she's not comfortable with doing these things on the internet. So we need to make sure that rural communities can absolutely communicate, and taking away the post office or any part of the post office will jeopardize that.
Thank you so much. I completely agree with that. Even here in Michigan, where tribal communities are a little more centralized, and we even have some that are close to cities, you do still have to actually go out in what the city dwellers would call the sticks, to get to a community. And I can't even imagine what elders would have to go through if they didn't have a post office or a box, or even one in the tribe immediately next to them, much less at their own homes. And my next question is what are other contemporary issues for Native women that are most important for Native allies to work together on?
Well, a timely one, of course, is COVID-19. We, as much as we fought in Congress to make sure that tribes have the funding that they need to fight this pandemic, it has been slow. It has been not what we wanted it to be. For example, we wanted $20 billion to go to tribes in the CARES Act. The White House whittled that down to 8. And so this is a timely issue. And I mean, this is, we have to care about Native women. They are by and large the ones who care for their families, who manage the households. We need to give them the tools and the support that they need to get through this pandemic. And also, of course, I have, one of the reasons I came to Congress is because I felt very strongly that the United States was not living up to its trust responsibility to Indian tribes. We can always support the trust responsibility to Indian tribes. Write to your legislators. Make sure that they hear your voices. In that regard, answer the census, because we absolutely need to be sure that we are counted so that the funding, the appropriations will go to tribal communities. I think that all of us can support the promises. We can all honor the promises that the United States has to Indian tribes. We need to speak out about it and support the things that we know will move that forward. And that's absolutely the census. It's absolutely voting.
Thank you so much. And I do have to say I agree with you on the COVID issue. Out of all the people that I see and working with Indigenous mutual aid efforts, women are leading that charge. I mean, we've really been moving forward in any way that we can, and as you said, protecting our families, protecting our communities. And I appreciate all your work on our behalf in that regard as well.
Thank you.
Finally, I just wanted to kind of get your input and your take on, with everything that's going on, COVID, the current state of affairs and our future as the Indigenous people of this country. what are your thoughts on the resilience of our communities and how we'll move forward?
Well, I mean, look, we weren't supposed to survive. We weren't supposed to, you know, we were supposed to be, you know, we weren't supposed to survive. The plan of the colonization was to rid our country of indigenous people, so this land could be completely taken over. And our ancestors fought tooth and nail to sustain themselves, to live another day, to make sure that they were preparing a future for their grandchildren. And I believe that all of us have an obligation to meet that promise that they gave to us. I do that by involving myself in politics, by making sure that there are voices at the table. And so resilience means that we aren't invisible. Resilience means that our voices are heard above, you know, above all the noise, that we have that obligation to live up to the promise of our ancestors. And so with that, I'm completely dedicated to ensuring that we get more Native women into public office, because I think that's a really excellent way to make sure that we stay resilient.
And I love that you're saying that, because let us look all over the world right now and see the communities and the countries that are doing the best with response to COVID, and who are lead countries.
Yes.
Women. So here you are. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to watching all that you do. Thank you so much from our community.
Oh, thank you so much too. Thank you.
It's my joy to introduce another Return to the Heart Society Fellow, Ray Zaragoza. Ray is Pima and Chinese. Ray is an award-winning singer, songwriter, and performer who carries an acoustic guitar and a message. Today, she brings us the recently released new song, The It Girl, encouraging more representation of Indigenous women in the media.
I could tell I was living in a world that wasn't made for brown-skinned girls. Just you wait, it'll be your turn. And in the mirror I would say to her, I could be the it girl, can't you see? I could be the face on the magazine. Paint me like a debutante, your prom queen. Pretty little it girl, yeah, that's me. Do you ever feel like everywhere you go, you're just an act in the sideshow? Just a friend, a second thought. It's time you give them everything you got. I could be the it girl, can't you see? I could be the face on the magazine. Paint me like a debutante, your prom queen. Pretty little it girl, yeah, that's me. Why would you wanna be like anybody else? You're better off just being yourself. Why don't you look into the mirror and say, I wouldn't want you any other way? But I could be the it girl, can't you see? I could be the face on the magazine. Paint me like a debutante, your prom queen. Pretty little it girl, yeah, that's me. I could be the it girl, can't you see? I could be the face on the magazine. Paint me like a debutante, your prom queen.
And for our final segment, we are thrilled to be joined by Congresswoman Sharice Davids and artist Savannah Lyra Rose. Representative Davids is a member of the Ho-Chunk Nation and represents Kansas's 3rd Congressional District. She serves as one of the first 2 Native American women elected in 2018, and she is the first openly gay LGBTQ Native American person to be elected to Congress. Sharice has lived and worked on Native American reservations with tribes to create economic development opportunities and programs. Under the Obama administration, Sharice was selected to participate in the prestigious White House Fellowship Program. And, fun fact, Sharice has competed as a professional in mixed martial arts. And Savannah Lyra Rose is an Apache Puerto Rican actress, runway model, and exhibited artist raised on the San Carlos Apache Reservation, just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. Savannah is the first Native American female lead of a U.S. TV series called Chambers on Netflix, and she will be voting for the first time this year.
Hello, and I want to say thank you so much for speaking with me today. I'm very excited for all of this. You were a big inspiration to me in all the work you've done. I'm honestly huge, just so much respect for you, I have to say.
Oh, thank you. I'm also excited to get the chance to have this conversation with you.
I just want to say too that before we start, I actually am a first-time voter. So I'm very, I'm getting my political feet in the water, I don't know how else to say it, but are there any advice you have for someone like me getting into the world of voting?
Well, first of all, I'm very excited to know that you're a first-time voter, and one of the things that I think is so vital that folks might not realize is just how important the Native vote is. The Native vote and our importance in this, specifically the 2020 election, it cannot be overstated. And so I'm just really excited to know that you're a first-time voter and that you're planning on voting. And thank you for doing that and for taking the time to get involved.
Working in the field you're working in and being, openly LGBTQ and working in Congress, it's obviously a big deal, But who is a woman in your life that has touched or inspired you, on your path?
Well, of course, the first most obvious answer is my mom. My mom is one of the most amazing people like my mom who are really just in everyday life doing all of the things. I often say that I think of changing the world as, it looks a lot like having meetings and, sending emails and writing letters and there are so many people who have gone through life and have just kind of, especially when I think of Native people and LGBTQ folks, it's like showing up to work is who you are sometimes is just literally, that's part of changing the world. And so I think a lot about all the people whose names we don't ever learn, whose stories we don't really ever get to hear, but they're really the ones who make it so that, so someone like me can get elected to Congress or any other, we've got tons of Native candidates here in Kansas and across the country. And it's just it's so amazing to think about. And I'm really, a lot of times I'm very, very inspired by the folks whose names don't end up, in the newspaper. Yeah.
I guess I would love to ask another question about, working in Congress. What has been a memorable or very rewarding moment of your career so far?
Now that I'm in Congress, Deb Haaland and I get the chance to work on and try to figure out ways from the federal perspective to address issues of murdered and missing Indigenous women, to talk about tribal sovereignty, to talk about just issues that affect Indian country that some of our colleagues just are not familiar with. And I think that that's probably been, if what we're talking about is seeing kind of the fruits of your labor, yeah. I think that that's part of it. And yeah, so it's those kinds of things now that we're in Congress, that I get to work alongside Deb with.
What is something that you are looking to for hope?
I mean, that's a really great thing to stop and reflect on every now and again, because this is an unprecedented time, and I don't just mean the global pandemic that we're in, that we haven't seen in anything like this in a century. I also mean, the really like necessary conversations and reckoning with the long history of this country. And we're seeing so many people who are trying to address the issues of systemic racism and racial injustice, and that work has been going on for a long time. So I think at least for me, in my lifetime, I haven't seen anything like this. And my hope is that the inspiring engagement and movement toward progress that we're seeing continues. So that's certainly part of, I think that watching the way communities are trying to come together, watching the way that we're seeing coalitions of people working on stuff, that's really inspiring. And, I often think about the long term. Our ancestors and the people who have been fighting for really fighting for progress and fighting for our people have been through and weathered so much, and we will do the same. And it is possible for us in the long term to move forward, and it's going to be hard and it's going to be painful, but we will come through this. And I think that there are so many times when I just think about the long term and how hard so many people have fought for so long, and just that's what we're doing. We're in the middle of it right now. We're in the middle of getting to see these amazing wins, things like so many Native people running for office, so many Native people just like stepping out into the spotlight and getting to demonstrate the power of Indigenous voices. We also are seeing things that are very painful and are really hard. And all of that stuff is happening all at one time. There's so much amazing work being done. There's so many people who are doing, who are just like trying to look out for their communities and trying to look out for this country and trying to look out for the earth. And so I think that those are the things that, it's like really inspiring. And to see so many young people who like see a vision for themselves in the future. That's how young people see a vision for themselves in the future, is that they're out like advocating and pushing for change. And people wouldn't do that if they weren't able to imagine what does the future look like for me, 15-year-olds out there trying to push for change. It's pretty inspiring.
Resiliency is, it's in our blood, it's totally, like you said, it's the ancestors with us, still with us, all the work that has been done and is going to be done. It's very powerful. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
We have one final segment with a special guest who's been involved with this project from the beginning. It's actress and advocate Anne Hathaway. Anne is one of our greatest champions, and she will be reading our Sisters Rising pledge along with our team. Please take the pledge at sistersrisingtogether.org to get involved as we register and continue to do the work to strengthen our democracy.
We are women rising up and uniting in sisterhood for the transformation of this country and our world. As we remember the movement for the women's right to vote, we acknowledge the untold stories and courage of women whose names we will never know. Those who fought for us, looked into the future, and dreamed us into being. We are the daughters and granddaughters of those women. We are honoring the past and, like them, envisioning the future.
We pledge to find the courage to speak truth to power so that our daughters and our granddaughters have a democracy where the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are achieved, and the life of Mother Earth is healthy and thriving.
We pledge to one another to reach our goals in the shared spirit of sisterhood, supporting each other in our struggles and celebrating each other's accomplishments.
We recognize that the system of patriarchy has pitted us against one another, and our liberation is bound together. We are women rising. We are sisters rising. Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us at sistersrisingtogether.org or text RISE to 788-683.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. Please join us at Sisters Rising as we register and turn out a historic number of voters. Thanks to all of our partners, including We Stand United, Rock the Vote, Women's March, Supermajority, Naleo Educational Fund, Amy Poehler's Smart Girls, Vote Run Lead, League of Women Voters US, Mi Familia Vota, People for Peace and Justice Sandusky County, She Should Run, Rural Assembly, the YWCA USA, the League of Women Voters, and so many others. A special thanks to Mohawk Media Creations and the SCANA Great Law of Peace Center, and thanks to my fabulous co-host, Sarah Eaglehart. Please join us and get involved with Sisters Rising as we work together to inspire and register women voters. Go to sistersrisingtogether.org to sign up or text RISE, RISE, to 788-683. Thank you.